it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen.
There's something far worse than vampires. By Ringo Cross. Now this right here, this is one of our more pricier selections, Mr. Gibson, but I think it's perfect for the occasion. The waiter said before pouring him a glass of blended red wine. And for the lady, Mrs. Gibson, here you are. The waiter smiled at me before pouring wine into my glass as well. Thank you, my husband said before waving the waiter off so we could get back to enjoying our evening. Oh my, Walter, I giggled. That was so rude. I told my husband with a hint of sarcasm. What do you mean? You didn't even give me a chance to thank the man. He's been really nice to us so far. I don't think I've ever had a more polite waiter. My husband raised his glass to say a toast. Couldn't help but notice the warmth that radiated from his eyes. He was a vampire that rarely exhibited emotions. For him, any display of affection was as rare as the wine swirling in our glasses. Cheers. Cheers to our 1-year anniversary, my dear. I know I don't tell you enough, but I do adore you. I love you with all of my heart, my dear. Walter, that's so sweet. Thank you, he said, smiling at me. Cheers, I said before toasting. After taking a sip from his glass, he asked me, So, how's everything going? I found it difficult to hide my smile as I told him that things couldn't have been going any better. That's excellent. I know, I'm surprised myself. You surprise me every day, my dear Maya. It'd been about 1.5 years ago since my life had completely changed. That was around the time I met the man, vampire, I should say, of my dreams. We first met during a charity event at the Detroit Symphony Hall. We actually met after the concert in the Donor Lounge. A good friend of mine introduced us, and, well, as they say, the rest is history. The funny thing about it was that at first, I wasn't even planning on going. I was busy with work stuff, and yeah, I'd been to like 1 million charity events, given my station in the company. Please don't get me started on how any of this charity madness got started. It's a really long and really irritating story, and let's just say it was me who schemed up what I thought was this innocent little initiative, as a way to give back and say thank you to the local community for doing business with our company. I figured I could earn another easy raise. The program would end in 1 year or so, and then we'd move on to the next great big idea, like always. Well, unfortunately for me, the whole thing turned out to be a raging success. The program had kind of taken on a life of its own, so yeah, like I said, I'd been to quite a few of those things by this point. Turns out I couldn't escape those damn charitable events to save my life. Looking back on it, I came up with every justification you could think of to justify scrapping the program, but of course, it was to no avail. I know it sounds terrible, but I don't care. These exhausting events had taken a chunk out of my already non-existent social life, which irked me to no end. The night I met Walter almost never happened. I came that close to calling my secretary and having him attend on my behalf. Thank God I didn't. Don't know if it was fate or dumb luck, but whichever it was, that's how I met my future hubby, Walter. And I have to say, I'm glad things shook out the way they did. Is everything okay, my dear? He asked. Yeah, I'm sorry, dear, I smirked. What were you thinking about? Before I could answer, the chef and one of his assistants returned with our entrees on a food cart. As they placed our items on the table, I found myself staggered by another round of unsolicited thought. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't stop myself from reliving that fateful moment in which my life had forever changed. Oh my God, I'm doing it again. I told myself I'd stop thinking about this. It had been like 1 year since my transformation into a vampire, but the memories still haunted me. The process from human to vampire was wrought with so much difficulty and uncertainty. To be honest, it's probably a miracle I even made it through the first night. Walter had stayed by my side through the whole ordeal. He did his best to make sure I didn't succumb to my fever. But the pain was intolerable. Now, the whole experience was pretty intolerable, come to think of it. I totally regretted my decision at first. Well, I'll give Walter credit. He did ask if I wanted to go through with it before we actually went through with it, so to speak. I did kind of tell him I wanted this, without really giving it too much thought. Well, whatever. I'm just happy it all worked out in the end. I waited patiently, smiling the whole time as the chef and his assistant finished up. My husband thanked them before again hastily dismissing them. The chef and his assistant obeyed. I could tell they knew who my husband was. It's probably the reason we were even able to secure reservations at this fancy little restaurant to begin with. And my husband, Walter, wasn't exactly a high-ranking vampire or anything like that. I think it was his boss's boss who was the all-important one. I never actually met the lady. Come to think of it, I think Walter's only ever seen her a few times. Well, apparently this girl is a super big deal. I don't know, the whole vampire thing can get hilariously convoluted with all of their weird ranks and sub-ranks, crazy birthrights, twisted bloodlines, and the strange rituals. I forget his boss's boss, the official title, but I think the place my husband worked at, well, I think they were in charge of record keeping for the local vampire lords or something like that. That's a long story. Let's just say that around town, especially at hotspots like this restaurant, my husband was well respected. The funny thing about it was that when we met, I was the well-respected one. I used to be one of the top execs for one of the top lending agencies in the world. Now, I won't state the name for obvious reasons, but it wouldn't be too hard to figure out. The region we live in really only has one major mortgage player. You seem a bit preoccupied. You sure everything's okay, my dear? He asked, after noticing that I'd drifted off again into my own head. Oh gosh, I said, before laughing under my breath. Definitely feeling a little embarrassed. He caught me red-handed. With a weighty sigh, I told my husband, "Everything's fine, sweetie." Well, how are you adjusting to your new life? Wonderfully, I told him with a smile. Great. What about your new job? So far, I'm absolutely loving it. Really? Even though it's a notch or two down from the career you had in your prior life. Pay-wise, I'd say it's further down the totem pole than a notch or two, but yeah, as crazy as it sounds, this is probably the happiest I've ever been. That's both surprising and pleasing to hear. I'm glad you're happy, my dear. To be frank, I was afraid you'd come to miss your old life. You kidding me? Working as a travel agent for these crazy elite vampires has been the most amazing experience. I've met so many different people, and I've learned so many different things about our world. It's not even funny. I couldn't have asked for a better life. That's good to hear, my dear. How are you adjusting to the transformation? I'll be honest, it was hard at first. When you changed me, I almost died. Is that common? I'm starting to get the feeling it is. I'm afraid so. Oh, that sucks. No wonder vampires are so reluctant to turn others. Why is that? Why is what? Why is the process so taxing? Well, apparently it has something to do with our saliva. The toxins carried in it can be deadly if not administered with supreme caution. I never asked you this, but do you regret your decision to change me? Look, I'm afraid I do. It was irresponsible, no matter the amount I care for you. Knew you'd say that. I gave it away. Nothing, it's just who you are. Is that a bad thing? It can be, I chuckled. Most of the time it's a good thing. A really good thing. Oh, that's good to hear, he he said, blushing ever so slightly. That's so wild, you know. What's wild, my dear? None of the things I thought would be true about us actually are. Well, not us, but our kind. You know what I mean, told him in a huff. What do you mean? He asked. Well, you know, it's totally opposite of all the vampire movies. We're not allergic to sunlight, garlic, crosses, or Bibles. I mean, we don't have to feed on human blood very often. Hell, we even have regular 9-to-5s. So, yeah, I don't know why I thought it would be any different. I suppose it could be overwhelming at first, especially for those not born a vampire. Yeah, speaking of that, I mean, what am I called again? I keep forgetting. What do you mean? You know, people like me who were turned into a vampire by another vampire. A brood. It's a very derogative term. Wish our kind would find another name. I don't mind it so much. You are a proud woman. Thank you, I said while blushing. That was the first thing I noticed about you, and the first thing I fell in love with. I'm sure he noticed my surprised expression. Walter hardly ever told me how he felt. He was always dodgy and cagey when it came to the subject. Oh man, the night couldn't have been going any better. I was so looking forward to celebrating a countless number of anniversaries with this vampire, especially if this was how it was going to be. Just then, Walter's phone began to ring. I looked at the number blinking across the screen in disbelief. Strange. He answered the call with this look in his eyes that sent a shiver down my spine. He set his phone on the table, looked over at me, and tapped the speaker option. Greetings, this is Mr. Gibson. What can I do for you? I would introduce myself, but I'm sure you already know who I am, Mr. Gibson. I do. It's a privilege to speak to you. I wish I could say the same. What do you mean? I'm calling you out of courtesy. I don't understand. Given you are a loyal subject of ours with a sterling reputation, I thought I should be the one who relayed the unfortunate news. You have been selected. Selected? He asked. Hey, what does that mean? Did we win a prize or something? I asked with a slight chuckle. Is that your wife? Yes, he uttered. Walter looked over in my direction with this look of despair. I could see the pain in his eyes. He took a deep breath and mustered up the courage to ask, And my wife? Has she been selected? I am afraid so. Oh, I thought only one person. Married couples are an exception to the one-person rule. I'm sorry, Mr. Gibson. I would advise you and your wife to spend the time you have wisely. Look, there has to be something that can be done. I know the decision can be appealed. Look, please, I beg you. I've served them faithfully my whole life. That's not how this works. Look, I am sorry. Farewell, Mr. and Mrs. Gibson. Walter stared at his phone. It was like he didn't want to believe the call was over. I've never seen my husband look so upset. I was confused and a little afraid to ask him what the hell was going on. I took a deep breath and worked up the nerve to ask him, Is, everything okay, sweetheart? He placed his hand atop mine and tried his best to smile. We should, enjoy our meal. Walter? It's nothing, my dear. You should eat your food before it gets cold. I heard what he said. Walter took a bite into a slice of filet mignon with a shaky fork. He peeked over at me while wiping his mouth with a napkin and asked, "How's your steak?" "Walter, who was he? Why are you so worried by what he said? Oh, you're starting to freak me out." He's a vampire way up on the food chain." "Really? How long have you known him?" "What? Oh, no, I mean, well, I've always known of him, but no, heavens no. I do not know him personally." "Wow. Why'd you say it like that?" "He's a vampire you never want to know." "None of this is making any sense. You're being extremely vague, Walter." "My dear, well, perhaps you should..." I stood from my seat and shouted, "I don't want any of this fucking steak. What I want is for you to stop lying. What the hell's going on, Walter?" I could feel the piercing stares of the other patrons without even having to look. When I realized I was brandishing my steak knife at my husband, I dropped it onto the table. Freaked out by my own behavior, I sat down and put my hands to my face. I fought like mad to gather myself, but before I could calmly tell my husband to spill the beans, the waiter came over and asked if everything was okay. My husband had been quick to dismiss the waitstaff earlier. This time, he didn't even so much as look up. He just sat there in his own little world, struggling to cut his stupid steak with a steady hand. We're fine, thank you," I snapped. He could sense the uneasiness and said, "If you need anything, I'll be happy to help." "Everything's fine," I reiterated. "Very well," he said before leaving our table. "Oh my God, I was just going on about how rude you were to our waiter, and here I am being rude to the waiter. God, I'm such a butthole." I placed my hand atop my husband's, and in as calm a tone as I could muster, I told him, "Walter, look, I'm sorry for yelling at you. It was wrong, it's just that... you know what? Never mind, you wouldn't understand." "It's okay. You have nothing to apologize for." "What's going on, dear?" "I'll tell you everything I know." "Hey, wait, my phone's ringing." I looked at the unknown number blinking across the screen. Something told me not to answer. I glanced over at Walter and then back at my phone. And against my better judgment, I accepted the call. "Hello?" Hello? Hello? I can hear you breathing into the phone. Oh my, I wish I could see the fear in your eyes. Just a glimpse is all I require. What? Their color. What do you mean? Your eyes, of course. Their color. Who are you? You don't sound like the guy who called my husband. What do you want? Ah, so he did call. I'll have to have a talk with his superiors for breaking protocol. The figure on the other end then cackled. I've never had my victims told before. This might prove entertaining. Who are you? How's your husband? Is he worried? What do you want from us? I asked, this time with tears forming in my eyes. I looked over and saw my husband staring at me with a look of trepidation. I don't know how, but it was like this person on the other end could sense how anxious he was making us. Oh, I can't wait. I wonder if the light in your eyes will flicker before it fades. Is that why you want to know the color of my eyes? Yes. It's the subtleties before death that make all the difference. Look, we have money. I still have contacts at my old job. They can help me get you whatever amount you're looking for. Please, We're good people. We don't deserve this. Oh, I can feel the strain in your voice. Please, just tell me what you want. Don't worry. I'll see you very soon. Hello? What's your name? How did you get my number? I glanced at my phone in disbelief. This asshole had the nerve to end the call, like what I had to say was worthless. I was furious. I turned to my husband and asked, "What kind of madness did you drag me into?" Maya, my dear, I should have told you everything I knew a lot sooner. It was foolish of me to withhold secrets. Well, I did it to protect you. It's just, our world is complicated, and I didn't think telling you would make your transition any better. Let's just go. I plopped down whatever amount of cash I had in my purse, grabbed my belongings, and headed straight for the door. I was hoping all of this nonsense was nothing more than some vampire being an asshole. Because, let's face it, no matter if you're a human or a vampire, there's always some asshole out to ruin your day. I made sure my husband saw me glaring at him through the glass door as I waited outside. I watched impatiently as he finished doing whatever it was he was doing. To be honest, I couldn't care less what he was doing. I was just so peeved off by the situation he dragged me into, I couldn't really focus on anything else. When he did finally decide to leave, he had the nerve to offer me his hand. Well, as much as I hated him right now, I accepted his offer. Together we made our merry way across the street, in the direction of the parking garage, so we could get our car, go home, and pretend like this night had never happened. We were in downtown Royal Oak, which was apparently a hotspot for vampires. It's funny because when I was much younger, I'm talking late teens, early 20s, I'd been on several dates in or around this area. That realization blew my mind. I never would have guessed that this was prime hunting grounds for my kind. You could see the car park from where we were. All we had to do was get there and everything would be okay. God, I never wanted anything so bad before. I stole a deep breath and told myself, "Okay, girl, just hold it together a little longer. All you gotta do is just make it to the car and we'll be fine. That's all you gotta do. Let's just get there, start the thing up, and drive off. After that, we can pretend like this night had never happened." I quickened the pace when the crosswalk gave us the signal to proceed. It was around 9 o'clock at night now, in a busy downtown district, so of course I tried my best not to draw attention. It was difficult though. The whole time we were crossing the street, I had this sick feeling deep down in the pit of my stomach. I just knew this sicko was watching us right now. He was probably waiting for us to make a mistake so he could pounce on us like prey. We passed a cluster of restaurants. One of them had a balcony. Don't know why, but the carefree laughter of the humans dining outside in the cool night air really got under my skin. It was stupid, I know, but I suppose the saying was true. Misery loves company. We crossed another street. This one led past a dark, winding road. Walter stopped dead in his tracks as soon as his foot hit the other side of the curb. I let go of his hand and huffed in frustration. "Walter, why did you—" Before I could even finish, I caught a glimpse of what he was staring at. On that same winding road that we'd just crossed was a municipal building with a slated roof. Well, atop the gable, on the side closest to us, I saw him. A shadowy figure was standing near the edge, watching our every move. Couldn't make out any of his features because of the distance and the darkness. The only thing I was able to see were his eyes. Oh, that piercing stare. His eyes cut into me like a pair of daggers. Walter turned to me and said, "We should keep moving." "Is that the guy who's after us?" "Yes," my husband stammered. Put his arm around me without saying another word, and together we continued making our way towards the car park. Well, we made it there without incident several minutes later. I sighed in relief when we reached the elevator. After pressing the button for the top floor, I went back to the wall and took in a deep breath. I then turned and looked at Walter. He was just staring at me. He tried to speak, but kept choking on his words. "What's wrong?" I asked him. "I'm so sorry," he muttered. When he raised his head, I could see the infinite sadness in his eyes. "My love, my dear Maya. No, none of this makes sense, but I promise you'll understand once we reach the afterlife." "Walter, you're scaring me." He kissed me upon the forehead before telling me, "Whatever you do, don't run." "What? Don't run? Why not?" I watched with bated breath as the elevator doors crept apart. As soon as we exited, I turned my head in the direction of our vehicle. My heart nearly fell from my chest. Oh my God. It was the person who'd been hunting us. There he was in the flesh, leaning up against the side of our car, smoking a cigarette. How in the hell did he even beat us to our car? How in the hell did he even know which car was ours? He was just on that rooftop, staring at us like... Oh, no, there had to be another explanation. Otherwise, this was truly a nightmare. Maybe this was a different person, I thought. No, it had to be him. I'd never forget those eyes, and all that sense of dread his presence filled me with. I grabbed Walter by the arm. "What should we do?" I don't know. Maybe we can talk to him." "No. We're good people. I'm sure if we just..." "No." The figure turned his head in our direction when he heard the commotion. He flicked his cigarette butt into the shadows before calmly stepping into the driving aisle. It was quiet enough to hear a pin drop. So when I heard his footsteps as he approached, I nearly lost it. He was maybe 15 feet away, just standing there watching us. A voice inside my head told me to turn and run and to never look back. My husband was mesmerized by this being. He knew who this person was. I could tell by the fear forming in his eyes. I could tell by the hushed breaths he stole. The tension was suffocating. The nightmare was real. This monster had come to claim our dreams. Every step stolen brought him closer. When he was about 10 feet away, he stopped again. That's when I finally was able to catch a glimpse of his face. It shocked me to my core. He was normal. Nothing about his appearance screamed out soul stealer at all. He was dressed in all black, an overcoat of some sort, boots and jeans. His long dark hair was slicked back and tied into a ponytail. He was well groomed and clean shaven. He was nothing like what I'd expected to see. His features were flawless. You could even go so far as to say he was beautiful, like some kind of dark angel. The only thing airy about him were his eyes. I could see the hatred behind their brownish tinge. Those two swirling masses were a glimpse into madness. Usually I prefer a good hunt, but I suppose having to always chase after your prey gets old. It's also a tad cliche, like some second-rate horror show. "Who are you?" I asked. He smirked. "Did you enjoy your meal? Probably crude of me to ruin it with a call. Why do you want to kill us?" He came over and stood directly in front of me. He placed his gloved hand to the side of my face and stated, "Ah, exquisite. I can't wait to extinguish a soul filled with so much life and so much curiosity. Are you one of us? I'm afraid not. Then what are you? I think I'll save you for last. It'd be a waste not to savor every drop of your passing. A soul as rare as yours is like an amaranth. He then turned and stared at Walter for a moment. With a monstrous grin, he told him, "As for you, I think you know how this ends." "Walter!" I screamed. The being lunged himself upon my husband and drove his fangs deep into the side of his neck. He drained his blood with a voracity I had never seen before. I fumbled through my purse and pulled out my pocket pistol. I cocked the hammer back and aimed for his head. My trigger finger felt like a lead weight. I tried and tried to pull the trigger, screaming out my husband's name the whole time, telling him I was sorry. He was killing Walter right in front of me. But no matter how much I wanted to, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. This soul stealer gazed into my eyes as he drained the life out of my husband. I backed away until my back hit the wall next to the elevator, and I couldn't go any further. I wanted to run so bad. I wanted to get as far away from this place as possible. But somehow, I knew. I could feel it. No matter where I ran, he would find me. He tore his fangs from my husband's neck without much compassion. Grinning wildly, he turned Walter around so I could see as the life slipped from his eyes. Tears slipped from my eyes. It was so painful to have to stand there and be forced to witness my husband's final moments like that. There was nothing graceful about death. His lips quivered as he struggled to say the words, "I love you," one last time. "Walter, no!" He let go of my husband's body, and it turned to ashes before it could even hit the ground. My hands were shaking uncontrollably by this point. I couldn't take it anymore. I closed my eyes and lowered my weapon. I cried and cried for what seemed like an eternity. I asked God to save me. I prayed and hoped an angel would notice my tears. He leaned into my ear and whispered, "Maybe if you click your heels, you can go home." God, please stop. I love the way you say his name. Why are you doing this? So much hope, so much light, so much fear. I can only imagine how potent it is. He drew his lips so close to mine we could have kissed. I could feel the heat that radiated from his skin. His breaths were hot and heavy. Instinctively, I turned away when his nose brushed up against my neck. Blood in my veins made him moan in desire. "You're a thief." It's funny you say that. Isn't that the same thing a human would say to you? I looked up at him with teary eyes. My whole body was trembling. I asked him, hoping against hope that he would finally reveal his identity. When he ran his fingers through my hair, a cold shiver ran down my spine. I scraped at the brick wall until my fingers bled. This soul stealer touched my right earlobe while examining the diamond earrings Walter had surprised me with earlier today as an anniversary gift. He traced down my neck with the back of his fingers. I shuddered, wanting nothing more than to let myself slip out of the body where I could be free. While staring deeply into my eyes, he finally revealed his true motives. "My name is Jarrell. I'm one of 5 fallen generals who fought for his dream. My job is to make sure the new faith continues to prosper. Vampire like you, who are non-believers, are of no use to me or the anti-church that serves under me. But that's not why I'm here. That's not the reason I'm going to slay you." I was sobbing like mad. This wasn't happening. None of this was happening. This had to be a bad dream. I shook my head over and over, trying my damnedest to stop my life from flashing before my eyes. I didn't want to die, not like this. I couldn't believe it. Life could be so fucking unfair. I looked up at this thief and asked him, "Why do you have to kill me?" "That's the reason we created your kind. We need your blood to sustain ourselves while here. As you can imagine, hell isn't the most comfortable place in the world. You'll find out what I mean soon enough, though. Please, I don't want to die." Begging is so undignified, especially for a woman as dignified as you. His words stabbed through me like a sword, killing my heart before I'd even died. He plunged his fangs deep into my neck when he saw my sadness. The pain was infinite and intense. Fire jolted down my neck, my shoulders, my arms, before settling in my chest. He drained every ounce of my being, who I was, who I wanted to be. It was all taken from me. There were so many things I would never know and so many things I would never see. I thought about my ailing mother, my hard-working younger brother, my little niece, who was a darling, but most of all, Walter. I thought about the love of my life and how our love and life together had been taken away from us so cruelly. I could barely even keep my eyes open. My head fell back against the wall. My body slowly slipped to the floor, tearing the back of my dress in the process. This monster crouched down in front of me and watched in fascination as I choked on my own blood. He gazed into my eyes with this look. It was as if my death was his possession, and he was admiring his handiwork. He kissed me upon the forehead before grabbing my gun and slipping it back into my purse. His lips ever so close as he whispered, "A departure such as yours deserves reverence. I'm going to dine on your suffering. Please." Fight its embrace. Walter?
Yes.
With the last of my strength, I reached out and touched the face of my slayer. I could feel myself turning into ashes. The spark inside me flickered before going cold. I watched as the hand touching his face turned to ashes right in front of me. I could feel my body slowly slipping, slowly becoming no more. My thoughts are my own. No one can take them away from me. Not even this wretched demon. Sadly, I thought the same to be true for my hopes and my dreams. Had I known in life what I know to be true in death, I would never have taken Walter up on his offer. Moral of this story, there's always a bigger fish in the pond, always someone meaner and nastier, no matter how tough and vampire-y you are. Okay, awesome story there from Ringo Cross. Thank you for that one. Really loved it. Brilliant. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thoughts, feelings, anything else you want to say in the comment section below the video. And as ever, I will do my best to join in the conversation. That's it for Monday. Back again very soon. Maybe even tomorrow night. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, definitely on Wednesday as normal. Getting back into the full routine, finally. So, yeah, there you go. Nothing much else to say this evening. So, as always, very, very sweet dreams. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.